Morning everyone, day 26, so 5 more days to go until the end of this challenge. Feeling a bit rough this morning, but hopefully it's nothing serious, probably just a bit tired and didn't sleep well last night. But here we are, let's get our 100 press-ups underway, and this morning I'm going to talk about something that brings me a lot of joy in the morning. Okay, 35 done. So the thing I want to talk about this morning is coffee. Now, kind of boring, I guess, in some ways, but if I can frame it in the sense of I've, for the last couple of years, been trying to optimize or improve, or I guess just be more conscious about my health and what I do and what I don't do. And I think in large part I've cut out, unhealthy things from my diet. Doesn't mean my diet's great, but it means I generally don't have fast food and eat quite healthy. Generally cut out alcohol to a very large extent. And the sort of most recent trend that I've seen online is people talking about the impact of cutting out coffee. I remember about a decade ago, actually, there was a BBC Radio 1 presenter called Chris Moyles, and he did a sort of 3-day live telethon or calling for charity, and he said his secret was he didn't drink coffee at all, and he managed to keep his energy levels up and stay awake just on water. And more recently I've seen a couple of, maybe they are lifestyle influencers, but actually people who host podcasts and do YouTube videos talk about the impact they've noticed from cutting out coffee. And they talk about how in the first day or two you get very, very irritable, but then gradually you tend to find a new balance where you don't crash and burn like that. And the issue for me is I've not had that sort of experience, or I don't think I have that sort of relationship with coffee, and it may just be I'm so dependent on it that it is just maintaining a normal, but I don't tend to feel a crash, let's say a couple of hours after drinking it. Now, I guess the other question is it an addiction? I mean, I've pretty much had a cup of coffee for maybe the last 5-10 years. The first thing in the morning, and occasionally, very reasonably commonly, if I'm out, I'll have a second cup. Either with friends, or if I'm at a course or a conference where there's free coffee. So not unusual to have 2 cups, 3 cups in a day, and I don't ever feel jittery if I have just one. I don't tend to feel euphoric if I've had 3, but I do really look forward to that first one. Now, again, another trend I've seen online, sort of driven by sort of Andrew Huberman, who's a sort of health influencer researcher, is he advocates for taking coffee sort of 60 to 90 minutes after you wake up, because your adenosine receptors are only sort of unblocked for it to bind to them, for the caffeine to bind to them after that period. Again, I've tried that for a few weeks, didn't really notice any extra kick, not really noticed any problem with me if I take it earlier. So it's something that I look forward to, something I really enjoy in the morning without too much hassle. And I guess my only real question is, could I be so dependent on it that I don't even know what life would look like without it? And is there a possibility that that life without coffee is so great that it's worth giving up? Don't know. You know, I tend to think, I'm thinking at the moment, if it's something I enjoy and something that I don't think is associated with any harm, and if I can't demonstrate that harm, then I'm just cutting out something I enjoy for the sake of almost masochism, to try and on paper say I'm doing something really hard and therefore something hard equals something better, which I'm not convinced that it would be. So at the moment I have no strong feelings towards cutting out coffee or even reducing or altering my regimen in any meaningful way or building any structure around it. And the other sort of consideration I have is, what sort of coffee should I drink? And by no means do I consider myself a coffee snob or a coffee expert. I don't enjoy instant coffee, but you know, I'm not going to kick off if that's what's being served at a conference or a reception or something. Very happily have it, but at home I have an espresso machine. It is so convenient that, you know, with the press of a button you get, to me, what tastes like great coffee. I like the Nocciola flavour, and there's a Pierre Hermes flavour as well, which is a sort of hazelnut coffee, which I think are awesome and so simple, right? And so the effort to reward ratio is so good, and it's something which I've had for, you know, probably a decade, and it's still something I enjoy. And there aren't many material or food things that I can say, maybe some food, but there aren't any things that I do with that sort of regularity that are so simple that bring me so much joy. Now, the reason I'm talking about it is I was speaking on the weekend to someone who, again, brought up the topic that they were moving over to a bean to cup machine. And I've seen these really beautiful videos where, you know, you really take the beans, grind them, you do the sort of aeration of them and the tamping, and you know, take full care about the beauty of the process from bean to cup and watch it drip through. It's beautiful. But I'm not sure if that trade-off for me, by increasing effort, you know, probably by a factor of 10, 20 times, will yield a reward in terms of taste that is significantly better. I can tell the difference. I think it would be better, but significant enough for me to make that investment, not sure. And I think actually the reason people do go through that process is because of the ritual and the hobby of it, and the ability to curate and make small edits. And also I think, you know, some people like to show off, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's something, so if it's something you really enjoy and get a lot of happiness out of the process of making coffee, then go for it. And it may well be something I enjoy and do in the future, but at the moment I think the effort to reward ratio I get out of my espresso machine is great. I think the joy I get out of a coffee in the morning is great, and so I'm not going to change that. I think in terms of timing and things like that, it's not something that I notice a significant personal difference on, so I'm not going to change that. And maybe I'm not as sensitive to the caffeine effects as other people, which is why maybe I don't notice those ups and downs, which, you know, I guess is a good thing. But it's just something that brings me, it's something simple that brings me joy, and so it's something that I'm not going to go out of my way to change. In terms of high street coffee, I think it's gotten pretty ridiculous now that you're paying £3-4 for a coffee, which is, you know, 10x what you pay for an espresso, and so mentally I find that very hard to justify. But you know, I'm not like, it's not a rule. I'm not dead set against it. You know, if I'm out with a friend or having a break on my own, I'm not sort of, it's not a moral stance I take, but it's something which I have not made a ritual or a practice out of, and so it is something that is very rare for me. But yeah, no, I think coffee's a simple thing which at the moment may be an addiction, but I'm not aware of its negative effects at the moment. And you know, if I can get convinced that there are, then I might try cutting it down, but at the moment I think I'm going to leave things as they are. Alright everybody, I'm going to go enjoy my coffee. See you all tomorrow.